So here we are, we're back and we're dry. I've given this a little bit of a squirt with a repurposed Febreze bottle, this one is, and that's why we've got a little bit of a splash there, which is fine. And it's nice and dry. I've rubbed the salt off, and we've got some beautiful textures to work with. So now you've got like the backdrop, you can make it whatever you want. This one in my little sketchbook, I did a similar way, and just dropped in some distant trees and then building up the pigment to build a bit more. Let's see what we're going to make. This one, I'm going to still just use the one colour, the indigo, so I've got my little number 0 rigger brush, which I quite like for trees, and a tiny 0.3 Kurtzwald watercolour brush. It is a very tiny, maybe that's easier for you to see. And that's my rigger brush. So I'm going to start with a rigger brush, a little bit of indigo, plenty of water, and then maybe we're going to put a hill here. Just letting my brush do its thing. Remember, background a little bit lighter, foreground more detailed and more colour and more definition. Just dropping in some more saturated colour, as if there's like fences or hedgerows or something. A little bit of water just to brush it away, wash it away, wash the detail away. It's only a suggestion. Yours can look and do whatever you want. I think I might just bring some trees into this space here. So again, just indigo, bringing some branches and some tree stumps in different directions. So when you're painting with just one colour, it's all around the tone of the painting. So the nearer the front, you want a little bit more saturation of the paint, a little bit more definition on. I find rigger brushes are really good for me for doing trees and things like that, because they just sort of glide over the paper a little bit more. So these trees are in the foreground of this little copse. And mainly branches sort of go upwards. If you're looking at trees, they tend to sort of go towards the light. That tells us something of what we should be doing. So I'm now just going to wash my brush out, plenty of water, and I'm just going to put a bit of shadow, as if the trees in the area are just catching on uneven ground and just building a foreground, as if it's like the edge of a bank, or I don't know, it could be a lake or whatever you want it to be really, or a river. Maybe make a river out of it. I'm just going to add some sort of taller grasses. So it's almost directly now out of the pot, out of the pan, sorry. Just building a little bit of a bush on this side, quite like sort of grasses and that sort of sense of moonlight. If you work onto the wet in wet, it just makes it a little bit mistier. Again, a nice way of getting texture is just to drop a little bit of water into there. Some random dots, and I'm just going to darken these two tree trunks here. Quite concentrated paint now. And then I'm going to just put in, for me, a riverbank sort of running, as if it's just going into the edge of here. So I've just wet my brush. I'm just going to now soften this back a little bit, but I just wanted an edge up on the top to create some maybe distant hills or a town maybe. You never know what's there, do you? Again, more water, just pushing it away. So then I'm going to add some ripples, plenty of water into my my wash. You can see it's got lots of water. I'm just going to add some ripples to indicate that there's some water present. Plenty of water, wash it away, soften it up a little bit so that they don't fight for the foreground for that. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of dry brush, not too much. So rubbing just the edge of your brush up and around to make the edge of these winter trees. on its side. I'm just going to maybe bring that a little bit over there. I don't want to obliterate the beautiful textures underneath, but I do want it to sort of look like there's trees and a bit of foliage on. I'm just going to darken this area around here. Again, quite a lot of dry brush work, but the darker foreground helps that sort of lighter other side of the hills or whatever's there. Just having a bit more definition. Now we've decided what's going there out of our imagination, which I like. So all I'm doing there is just playing with a bit of water to just make that hill a little bit more defined. Then I'm just going to pick up my little tiny brush and I'm just going to put a little bit more grasses and detail in. I'm keeping this quite loose, but because I want this light to work with the painting. And you can always go darker, it's just harder to go lighter. And there we have a little scene just in indigo, which is really quite pretty. Hope you've enjoyed that. You can try it in any colour, do all sorts of things. I do like how you can get the texture on and then just work with the texture. I'm just going to lift out a little bit of light hitting these trees here. So I've just wet my brush, bit of a tissue in, and it just lifts off a little bit of a damp brush, rub it in with a clean bit of tissue, and it just lifts a little bit of light. And I might just put in a couple of shadows. There, I'm going to call that a day. Enjoy, play with your paints and your brushes and see what is created on your paper.